Ich denke, wir sollten starten.
So, Arno.
Dann, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lumitronic's Single Light Regulation Game Changer for Lighting online seminar to explore the eco-design. I am Arno Grabhammeyer, Technology Specialist at the Photonics Department of V Research. It's my pleasure to guide you through a bunch of very interesting lectures and discussions on this important topic. But before we start, I want to thank the organizers from Lumitronics, Paul Sparrenborg and his team, for their great job. They motivated a lot of very, very experienced specialists to share their knowledge, their perspective on this very important topic, and to give advice. I think we are all aware of the fact that this new directive brings some critical changes. While we all understand that an update was necessary to continue the way to more sustainability, more reliability, and more efficient products, also in lighting, we had to learn that this brings several changes and challenges for manufacturers, importers, distributors, and retailers with it. The list of changes seems to be endless, and the questions regarding to that. What is in scope? What is out of scope? How to do labeling right? How do I need to change my documentation? What's my obligation to inform? How about the product design? And feeding the product database, and much, much more. So before we start directly with our first speaker, please let me remind you that the webinar will be recorded, so you can watch it later again if you missed a detail. Please feel free also to place questions in the chat room. We strive to answer all of them at the end of the webinar. However, I ask you for your understanding that due to time limits, probably not all questions can be answered ad hoc, and if possible, we will answer them then later by email. But let us now start with the lecture from Robin Ogden, lighting specialist and vocational trainer of the Lichtforum NRW. Robin Ogden, master in metal crafts with more than 25 years of experience in decorative lighting, is mainly in charge for product quality and testing. Since 2017, in the team of Lightform, Mr. Ogden develops vocational training courses for employees in the lighting branch and supports companies on a technical level. Robert will talk about neue EU-Verordnung für die Lichtbranche. Give a sound overview on the most relevant changes and how to deal with them. Please, Robert, welcome.
Okay, hello everybody, and I'm going to share my screen. So, thanks for the introduction, Arno, and a warm welcome from Lichtforum NRW. We are an initiative founded by regional lighting manufacturers and are based in the region of North Rhine-Westphalia with the highest density of companies working in the lighting branch. Our goal is to support the field wherever necessary, and today I would like to talk about the new regulations, which are already produces many questions amongst the companies. As the wording is really very special in German, I'm afraid I cannot guarantee for the correct English expressions. In particular, it are these new regulations which only can be seen jointly. we from Lichtforum NRW would like to assist distributors of lighting products to apply these new regulations and to clarify points requiring deeper understanding. And for this, we initiated a working group consisting of manufacturers and experts to discuss open questions continuously. The regulations deal with both light sources and control gear. In this presentation, allow me to concentrate on light sources and luminaires only. Before we clarify what a light source is according to the regulation, let me talk about the exceptions. There is a list of light sources in displays, electronical displays, emergency lighting, solar lighting, bicycle light, and many other exceptions too. But I would like to point out the case of exclusively battery operated luminaires. Say this table light is equipped with an USB socket for a charging plug. If it can light during charging, its light source falls under the scope of the regulation. But if a built-in switch cuts off the lighting during charging, it would then be considered as an exception. And we have to get familiar with new terms. The lamp or LED module now is called a light source. I would say that shouldn't be a problem for us all. A bit more complicated is the wording containing product, which actually stands for the luminaire as we know it in the classical way. But nowadays, all sorts of products are equipped with LED, like shower heads, railings, furniture, and so on. And to cover all these new products, the expression containing product was introduced. If I happen to use the word luminaire, I certainly mean containing product. If we want to know who is responsible for what, we have to sort out the different actors involved in the whole process, starting from the production to the sale at the end. A supplier, according to the regulation, can be a manufacturer based in the EU or an importer of products, for example, from Far East, or an authorized representative of a non-European manufacturer who places the products on the EU market instead. But please remember, placing on the market means making a product available in the EU market for the first time. Importing it alone doesn't mean that it has to be placed, that it has been placed on the market yet. The retailer, he is the classical seller. He sells, he markets the product to the end user. Both the supplier and the retailer have to know and follow the requirements of the regulations. There are 3 deadlines we have to keep in mind. From the 1st of May on, information and parameters of a light source can be entered into the European product database EPRL, so that they are available on September 1st of this year latest. It should also be possible to generate energy efficiency labels for the registered light sources from May 1st onwards. September 1st, 2021 is the most important deadline because that is the day the regulation comes into force with all its consequences. In a nutshell, first, the old energy labels displayed for lamps on at the point of sale are to be replaced. Lamps with old labels on the packaging can be sold off. I heard something of a fortnight transition period, but I don't know. I don't know this for sure. I will have to check this. Second, you have to follow new obligations concerning the information on luminaires and light sources. And just to mention, third, compact fluorescent lamps, so-called energy saving lamps with integrated ballast, CFLI, can no longer be placed on the market. The 1st of March 2023, 18 months after the regulations came into force, is the next deadline after which products with old energy labels are no longer permitted. But as long as the new requirements are met by the light source, the old labels can be replaced by a new one. For the next slides, I'd like to mention two more definitions. Information, I understand, or information means all the notes on functionality and testing, whereas parameters stand for all technical values of a light source. These are different depending on if we are talking about a containing product or a light source. We from LITforum NRW were able to measure these parameters in our own laboratories. So what does the supplier have to observe? As a supplier of luminaires, there are three different major cases with different requirements. Scenario 1. If you place a luminaire without a light source on the market, you can lean back. You have nothing to do with these regulations. From Christmas Day 2019 on, the energy label for luminaires was no longer required. You are allowed to sell off your products with the old label. Scenario 2. You place a luminaire on the market with an exchangeable light source. Done. Case 1. This light source is already available on the market. Then you only have to refer clearly to this in your technical documentation so that it can be found in April. Case 2. Are you enclosing a light source which hasn't been placed on the market yet? For example, because you import this light source especially only for this luminaire, then you have to register the light source yourself in April. Scenario 3, and now it's getting a bit more complicated. If you provide an integrated fixture with a mounted light source, usually LED, there are again two cases with different approaches. Case 1, the light source is removable for verification. This is now very important. This means it can be extracted from the containing product without being damaged, without the light source being damaged. Then it follows the way like I mentioned before with the enclosed light source. Has it already been placed on the market? It has been registered in April, and you only need to refer to this light source in your technical documentation. But are you placing this light source with the luminaire on the market for the first time? It is your task to register it in April. Case 2. The light source is not removable for verification. Then the whole containing product will be regarded as a light source and has to be measured accordingly. This can be quite difficult, for instance, if you have long rails with sealed LED modules. But you, as a supplier, can determine the light source yourself. So perhaps the LED module is taped firmly into an aluminium profile, but the profile itself can be removed for verification. Then this profile can be regarded as a light source for a better result, maybe without a cover. If this element is used for different fixtures, it only has to be measured and registered once. And for the technical documentation, you only need to refer to this light source. We are shifting now from removable to replaceable. Removable, that is what we learned before, means the light source can be removed for verification by the market surveillance without the light source being damaged. Replaceable, on the other hand, means a light source can be replaced by an end user or a qualified person with the use of commonly available tools without damaging the containing product. So the qualified person is considered to be an electrician or service assistant in the field. But to tell you the truth, this is not particularly mentioned in the regulations. And we understand under commonly available tools everything you can get in a common hardware store, such as spanners, pliers, screwdrivers, and so on. But even a soldering iron you can get in a hardware store. But this is something I wouldn't like to have an end user working with a soldering tool on my product. To avoid electrical waste, the Ecodesign requirement expect the light sources to be replaceable. But there are certain reasons which may justify a non-replaceability. If, for example, the replacement could reduce the electrical safety, or if the protection against moisture is being harmed, or the thermal management. In this case, some more information has to be provided. So if the light source is not replaceable, the technical documentation has to provide reasons for this, and the website has to inform about the non-replaceability. If it is a consumer product, a B2C product, even the operating instructions must include this information, and the packaging of the luminaire must show at least the pictogram. Suggestions for pictograms are already available, for instance, from Lighting Europe. They are publishing it for a free download. Yeah. No matter if replaceable or not, the supplier of a containing product has to provide three kinds of basic information. First of all, information on the light source, which is included in the containing product, and its efficiency, energy efficiency. This information has to be placed in the technical documentation, and it must be mentioned in the operating instructions by this product contains a light source of energy efficiency class X. But according to an amendment, I happen to find a new deadline for this. It is the 1st of March 2022. So if you download the regulation, you will not be sure if it's the latest version, because there are several amendments, corrections, and you have to really check out the website from the EU to find all these bits and pieces. The second basic information for containing products is how can the light source be removed for verification. And the third one is how can the light source and the control gear can be separated from the containing product for an adequate recycling after the end of life. So now let's jump from the luminaire to the light source, which itself is being placed on the market. Some information have to be placed directly on the light source itself. And besides necessary safety information, it is needed to mention the useful luminous flux, the color temperature, and additional with directional light sources, also the beam angle, but all if there is enough space. Should the whole containing product be regarded as a light source, this information has to be displayed somewhere on the containing product. Furthermore, there are many technical parameters which have to be displayed on the light sources package. However, how and where is clearly defined in the regulation. And now it's time for the retailer to act. Everywhere the light source is being marketed, no matter where, if in printed media, at the point of sale, or on online platforms, the energy efficiency class with its range has to be visible. And in TV spots, this even has to be communicated actively. Coming now to the actual parameters, what has the supplier got to obey? So is everything that lights a light source according to the regulation? Of course not. Only when these criteria here are met, they fall under the scope. For example, color and output have to be in a specific range. Decorative lamps with an extra low output or professional floodlights could fall out of the scope. And again, we have some exceptions. An LED chip, or so-called LED die, is the semiconductor part of an LED without optical elements or light converters. This is not a light source. An LED package, like a chip on board, neither is a light source normally. But if this LED package is intended to be used directly in an LED luminaire, say you have a chip on board, clamped down with a suitable device, it will definitely be considered as a light source. The technical parameters depend on the type of light source. So first criteria is the beam angle. If at least 80% of the total luminous flux are emitted within an angle of 120 degrees, we are talking about a directional light source, a DLS. This can be a reflector lamp or a flat LED module. Vice versa, everything else is therefore an NDLS, a non-directional light source. The second criteria is the supply voltage. Is the light source connected directly to the mains? We have a mains light source, MLS. This could be a retrofit lamp or a mains voltage LED module. But if it needs further equipment, such as a separate control gear to operate on the mains, we are talking about an NMLS, a non-mains light source. There are further types of light sources, and I don't want to go into details here. You only find combinations of these criteria, either directional on the mains or not, or non-directional light sources on the mains or not. And these are some of the basic technical parameters which the supplier has to provide for his light source. And depending on the type of light source, there are additional parameters to be determined. With DLS, the beam angle is extremely important, or with MLS, flicker and stroboscopic effects have to be checked. The Ecodesign regulation, and I'm not going into further details here, but the Ecodesign regulation that sets strict minimum requirements for the respective product. Please be prepared that all of a sudden the market surveillance authorities knock on your door and would like to take a glance through your documentation. They will check all information and parameters the supplier made in the relevant places. It would be quite helpful if you could provide in or external test reports to confirm your data. But just remember, to remove a light source for verification, the luminaire, as we understand it, could be damaged as long as the light source keeps undamaged. Long LED modules could be shortened to approximately 50 centimeters or whatever size comes next. If not, it will be tested with the whole length. The specified values will be checked and they should meet the verified results within a certain range. But if you specify the parameters of your light sources, please take tolerances into account. This could be really crucial. I hope I could give you a short overview. If you need any assistance, our labs and team colleagues are at your disposal. Thank you very much for your attention and stay healthy.
Thank you, Robin. This is quite a lot of information that you gave us. And I think there will be still open questions that need to be answered, but I think you will have to leave earlier today, unfortunately. So maybe forward these questions by email to you afterwards. Is that fine for you? Good. In that case, let me thank you again. And we will now switch over to the next topic. It's about the opportunities, how LED manufacturers can assist us in that question. And the speaker for this is Kai Haraguchi-san, manager.
Entschuldigung,
Yeah.
wir müssen auf Lumitronics wechseln, weil Kay noch nicht rein.
Okay. Couldn't. Okay, so we make a switch and we'll at first go to the lecture from Lumitronics, which is also very technical. Timo Guthrie, product developer at Lumitronics, finished his education as communication technician at the Philipp Matthäus Hahn Education Center in 2002. Since 2017, he works at Lumitronics as hardware developer, and he will give a lecture at Achieving Energy Efficiency Class A for light sources, complying with SLR. The speech of Timo gives practical technical advice how to pass the new stringent requirements to product efficiency class I category products. Please, Timo.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm not Timo,
Okay.
as some people might recognize. I'm Paul Spanborg. Timo Guthrie is not available this week, so we have rearranged on short notice our presentation. I will hold the main presentation, and our technical director, Volker Kukula, will take over the practical part in the presentation. I think that should be okay for everyone. So I will continue with my part now. My presentation will inform you on how and where to apply the new single lighting directive. I will not go into great detail with these aspects because we have already had a very good presentation by Mr. Ogden just before. I will just shortly highlight what you can understand from a containing product, light sources and control gears, and then hand over to a practical demonstration from Volker Kukula to give you a practical example of how to handle these words which might be new to some of you. Then I will give you a more close insight into the new Ecodesign regulation in terms of what are the requirements towards the light source and the control gears in a little more technical detail than Mr. Ogden did in terms of technical requirements towards the light source. And then I will lead over to Volker Kukula again, who will give you a practical demonstration again on how to apply these technical aspects to a practical demonstration. In the end, we will show, based on this practical demonstration, how you can have a solution to achieve an energy efficiency class A according to the new Ecodesign regulation for your applications. It is currently said to be very difficult to do that, but we at Lumitronics think there are actually quite good options to have an energy efficiency class A in the end. So let me jump into the presentation. Just very shortly, for those of you who might not know Lumitronics, we have a turnover of 12.5 million euros. We have approximately 70 people located in Hechingen, south of Germany. We are LED specialists and only LED. Which I'm standing right now. What is very important to us is a unique partner network, which helps us to give very good solutions towards the demands of our customers. Some of our very important partners are today here with us presenting their solutions for the single lighting regulation. I will not go into the details of how the single lighting regulation has been placed over the last years, but I have included the slide for your reference. You will be able to download these slides afterwards, and I think it's a very good overview to understand more clearly which old directives have been replaced by the new Ecodesign regulation, and how it is making things actually a little bit more easy in terms of how many different regulations were available or had to be considered in the past, and why it is called single lighting regulation actually. In all items I'm talking about, I will only talk about LED solutions, and please always refer to the official documents which we name in this presentation, because of course maybe what I say might not be correct in every word I'm using. It is better to always look also in the directive itself. So how and where to apply? As Ms. Stockton already said, the single lighting regulation makes things easy for the luminaire manufacturer if you understand how and where to apply the single lighting regulation. The single lighting regulation divides between light sources, separate control gears, lighting control parts, and the containing product, which is the actual luminaire. The light sources have very difficult to understand and very deep technical requirements, how they should be developed, how they should be constructed to fulfill the requirements of the single lighting regulation. And they also need to be labeled, and they need to be placed on the market, and there are a lot of information requirements which I will inform you later. For the separate control gear, there's only CE marking needed, but also quite strong technical requirements, which are difficult to fulfill. For lighting control parts, it is a little more difficult. They should be CE marked, but marketed only together with a light source or separate control gears. For containing product manufacturers, that might be a luminaire, but that also might be some very different product containing light source. This regulation makes things easy because you can mark your product only with a remark, this product contains a light source of energy efficiency class, whatever it is. So I would like to hand over to Volker Kokola to give us a practical experience of how to use these specific words.
Thank you very much, Paul. My name is Volker Kokola, and I'm the head of research and development at Lumitronics. I'm working here for 10 years, and after all of these slides, I would like to show you how this looks in the real world. Therefore, I will switch my camera to an overhead view, which you should see now. This luminaire is a great example on how to differentiate between the separate components. At first, we see this is the whole containing product. We can remove from the containing product 2 separate diffusion layers. After those diffusion layers, we see the remaining components, which are a separate control gear or power supply. The purpose of this is to reduce mains AC voltage down to a lower DC voltage. Behind the separate control gear is a lighting control. The purpose of the lighting control is to enable functionality like dimming or also smart connectivity. And in the end, there is the light source itself, which will brighten your day. After we have now seen the luminaire and how it is contained in separate components, let me switch back to my presentation. We have first seen that we have a containing product. The containing product contains a light source, a lighting control part, and a separate control gear. If we apply the old lighting regulation, this product combined has an energy efficiency of 65 lumens per watt and therefore will reach an okayish A in the old energy efficiency class. However, if you apply the new single lighting regulation without any changes, you will get a measly G. Actually, this product is close to not being able to be sold at all. With these practical insights, let's head back to Paul with some more details.
Thank you very much for your practical insights. I think it's very important and very good to see these technical specifications. And I will jump into the technical requirements of the energy efficiency of the light source. Just a moment, I have to switch the screen. Okay. So the light source energy efficiency is calculated with a quite complex formula. I will not read out the formula right now. I will just inform you about the most relevant factors inside the formula, which first of all is the correction factor. The correction factor is a factor which gives you the possibility to change the needed minimum efficiency depending on which type of of light source you're producing. So it differentiates between focused or non-focused lights and light sources which are at direct mains or not at direct mains. There's also a bonus for light sources which have a tunable white function, for example, or which have a very high light density. Then there's the loss factor, which differentiates different light source types. But since we are focusing only at LEDs, this is a constant number of 1.5 for LEDs. The useful luminous flux is the luminous flux of the light source, which is within the directivity defined for the light source. The efficacy factor, F, is just defining if it is a directive light source or if it's a non-directive light source, and giving you a correction factor on that again. The threshold efficacy is also a factor which is differentiating different light sources minimum efficacy, then corrected with the different correction factors. For LEDs, that is 120 lumens per watt. But due to the different correction factors, most light sources will not have a minimum efficiency of 120 lumens per watt, but actually lower. Volker, you just showed the example with 65 lumens per watt, which is still allowed to sell, even though the threshold efficacy of 120 lumens per watt is by far not reached. And then at last, there is a CRI factor. The higher the CRI, the lower the efficacy allowed to be placed on the market. The second efficiency requirement is the efficiency for the control gear. The efficiency for the control gear is a little more easy in its formula. So the output power of the control gear is relevant, and it is weighted with some specific formula, and there is a specific output which, depending on the output power, will define a specific efficiency. Which is what is very, very important for control gears is the maximum standby power of 0.5 watts in the future. And that is, from our experience, a factor which is very hard to reach with power supplies which have been used on the market in the past by very many luminaire manufacturers. Many of the control gears did not fulfill this requirement in the past. There's a lot of more technical requirements towards the quality of a light source, which and also the control gear, which is the displacement factor, also called power factor for the control gear. It is the lifetime of the light source, but the lifetime requirements are pretty easy to fulfill. Actually, the color rendering index is also specified with the absolute minimum, which you need to have to place your light source on the market.
Paul?
Yeah.
Sorry, you have to share your screen. It's still Volker's screen shared.
Oh, sorry, that is bad. Now, I think it should be replaced. Okay, luckily you'll have the possibility to download our presentation afterwards and see the foil which I just skipped and just explained. Okay, I have stopped at the color consistency, which is measured in McAdam steps. Also over here, there's a low requirement of 7 McAdam steps minimum, which needs to be fulfilled, which I think is very easy to fulfill. Then there's also a requirement for flicker and stroboscopic effect, which has to be fulfilled. What is very important and in my opinion also very difficult to fulfill is the new information requirements, because on the product, that means on the light source itself and also on control gears, there needs to be very specific informations. On the packaging, there's a whole bunch of specifications which need to be printed. For control gears, these informations also need to be published on a free access website. There's a very specific form of your datasheet and technical documentation which you need to fulfill for light sources and also for control gears. And what is quite tricky at the moment is that you'll need to publish all your products if you're producing a light source on the European product database, which is not perfectly working at the moment, which makes it a little tricky, but I assume it will be fine within the next weeks or month. If you are a luminaire manufacturer, then most of these requirements do not interest you at all, because you only need to print on your product, on your luminaire packaging. This product contains light source of energy efficiency class X. Only control gear producers and producers of light sources have to fulfill all these very difficult technical requirements. The energy labeling itself for light sources has been dramatically increased in terms of its requirements. To achieve energy efficiency class A, you need to have a total mains efficacy of 210 lumens per watt or more, which is as difficult to achieve as it sounds. But you'll have to remember, this is for light sources, not for the luminaire itself. So again, if you're a luminaire producer, you'll have to choose a light source which fulfills this efficacy. You'll not need to consider the losses generated within the luminaire. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll give over to the practical demonstration of Volker again, and hopefully we'll manage with the presentation better than before.
Thank you very much, Paul. After these technical details, I would like to again show you the luminaire we have taken a closer look to before, and tell you how to specify it in a way where you do not have to declare the whole luminaire, but only the light source in it. As we've seen before, this containing product has two diffusion layers. Both of these diffusion layers will absorb light and therefore will worsen your energy efficiency rating. There's also the separate control gear and the lighting control, which will also worsen your energy efficiency rating. However, if you take care when designing your luminaire, it is sufficient to just declare the energy efficiency of the containing light source. In order to be able to do this, the light source itself needs to be removable. Removable means that the light source can be extracted by a supervisioning party in order to make sure it really is as specified. But being able to remove the light source does not mean that everybody has to be able to extract it with a Phillips screwdriver and then place it back. It is totally sufficient if the containing product gets destroyed while removing the light source, as long as the light source itself is not destroyed. Let me switch over to my slides to give you an overview of how this will affect the energy efficiency rating. As you have seen, we have the containing product, and we have also the separate components, light source, lighting control parts, and separate control gear. With the old energy efficiency rating, using the whole luminaire as one, we only have an energy efficiency class of G. But without changing anything on your product at all, just declaring it correctly so that you declare the light source contained in your product and not the luminaire as a whole, you can improve your rating to a D. The energy efficiency of the light source itself is 143 lumens per watt. How to achieve this? You have to declare your light source, not the luminaire itself. But what if you are not satisfied with energy efficiency class D? After all, this webinar is called How to Achieve A. There are a couple of ways to achieve this, and Lumitronics will help you with this. The first step onto achieving an energy efficiency class of A is to separate the light source from the surrounding product, as we have seen before. And then you will have to change the LEDs contained in your product. There are several ways to do this. The first one is to use LEDs like tree gain. But there's also a second way. The luminaire we have seen currently has only one type of LED, which uses 3000 Kelvin as a color temperature. You are allowed to add tunable white functionality to your luminaire. And with this, it is okay that you add a very efficient 4000 or 5000 Kelvin LED as a second one and define this as the default operation mode, which will be used to specify the energy efficiency class of your containing light source. With these tips at hand, I would like to hand back to Paul.
Volker, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. Thank you for jumping in on short notice. I think you did a great job, and I'm finished with my presentation as well. And as much as I understand, Kei Haraguchi from Nichia should be technically available by now. And Anno, you can introduce Kei then.
Thank you, Paul. Right, Kei is now available. He is manager for lighting business planning at Nichia. Kei Haraguchi-san graduated at Kobe University as a Master of Astrophysics. He joined Nichia Corporation already in 2003 as a quality engineer, and after a few years he moved to Nichia Americas Corporation as a senior manager for technology support for automotive and general lighting. Since 2014, he is manager of lighting business planning and has launched several successful products meanwhile. In his lecture, Single Light Regulation, Game Changer for Lighting, Kei Haraguchi-san gives us a business perspective beyond the obstacles of the changed regulations when he proposes a way out of the treadmill by focusing on technologies that improve light quality and lead to added value. So Kei, please inform us about your ideas.
Yes, thank you very much, Arno-san, and thank you for waiting. Hello, everyone. I am Kei Haraguchi. I'm a manager of lighting business planning and product planning. Today, I am presenting the game-changing LEDs and how these LEDs supports eco-design and the lighting industry. Can you hear me? Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I will make a quick introduction of Nichia and let's touch base the LED history, current status, and future technology. Nichia was founded in 1956, headquartered in Japan. All LEDs are made in Japan, and all key materials such as LED dye and phosphor are made in-house. That makes us very stable supply chain. I will give you a little bit more details. Nichia has 3 unique competencies. The first one is the world's largest production capacity. You can see one of our buildings here on the left side. And the second one is in-house developed key materials, such as LED chip, phosphor, and LED package. The third one is in-house developed key machines. This makes Nichia sustainable and a unique position. Let's move on to the LED roadmap. This chart came from DOE roadmap. The horizontal axis shows the year, and the vertical axis shows the luminous efficacy of LED. If we take a look around the 2021, it is more than 200 lumens per watt here, and approaching to the theoretical limit of phosphor-converted LEDs. If we take a look the color mixed LEDs, which is dashed line, it has more room to improve, it seems like, but color rendering index is always poor with this technology. This is the current situation. Nichia roadmap is targeting 225 lumens per watt in 2022. From the efficacy side, Nichia would support eco-design and the lighting industry. Can LED help only efficacy? I do not think so. LED has more capability. LED adoption to the lighting industry began from energy savings here, which is mass replacement of bulbs and fluorescent lamps. Then CSP style LEDs, we call it direct mountable chip, supports easier design and create new design. Then phosphor technology with cutting edge technology supports quality of light, such as high CRI, which I am giving you updates later on. Then Nietzsche is stepping in human-centric light as the new features. Healthier life by lighting would create more ecology world by less patients in hospital. Well, CRI is the major factor of quality of light. This slide is showing the history of shipping ratio of LED in terms of the CRI. As you can see, the higher CRI is getting more popular than before. So such as 90 CRI is now getting more popular than before. But we had the issue of 90 CRI. As we all know, 90 CRI LED had been an apparent efficacy gap if it is compared to the 80 CRI. So blue dot is the 80 CRI LEDs and the green dots are 90 CRI. As you can see, the efficacy gap is 20 to 15%. But the new H6 LED is changing the game. This new H6 LED has same efficacy as 80 CRI, besides superior quality of color rendering index, which is more than 90 CRI. This H6 technology would help Ecodesign and the lighting industry in terms of the very good efficacy and the quality of light. Now, we are moving on how LED can affect health of human. White LEDs generally consist of a blue light source with a layer of phosphor on top. And these combine to make white light. They do not usually provide a strong cyan component here in their spectrum, because this comes at a cost in terms of luminous efficacy. So this cyan region drops the efficacy. This means standard LEDs struggle to provide truly human-centric solutions that stimulate the human body. Bite source technology enables users to benefit both the energy savings of LED and the advantage of human-centric lighting. Its rich cyan component gives you vitality, while LED efficacy is still high enough. If you multiply melanopic ratio, which connects to the cyan components and the lumens per watt efficacy, Vitasource comes the top over conventional LEDs. So Vitasource is giving you the both good efficacy and good melanopic ratio. This is also another new technology, the innovative 2-in-1 tunable white. Mid-power LED enables luminaire manufacturers to improve color tuning, shrink optics, and fixture profiles, while enabling new design options. This is the industry's first tunable white LED in a mid-power 3030 package with a single light emitting surface. Targeting most lighting applications, the technology provides luminaire manufacturers with a host of benefits ranging from new technology and design features to improve the factory operations and inventory positions. Nietzsche's proprietary 2-in-1 LED technology also allows for higher color quality, in some cases up to 90 CRI in the popular CCT regions as standard, achieved with negligible loss of performance versus standard CRI LEDs. This technology allows customers and the industry to focus on the benefits of the light instead of just energy savings, which already far surpass that of traditional technologies. This is something like compared to the traditional LEDs, like here, and the new technology, 2-in-1 30-30 LEDs. So as you can see, two colors are in one single emission, which can change the style or the size of the fixtures. As you can imagine, this 2-in-1 LEDs allows the reduction of light guide mixing area here, and a shorter optical distance like this, and a simplified PCB design like this, and a thinner edge of the fixture that creates the totally smaller size of the luminaires. So both new technologies, Vitasource and the 2-in-1 tunable white, are included into Nichia's Like So Good motto. We Nichia would like to support eco-design and our lighting industry with our unique technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kai, for your interesting speech and giving us insight into the options how Nichia can assist lighting manufacturers with their products in achieving a good business.
Mm-hmm.
So next presenter, it's a joint lecture from the Fraunhofer IBP team, authored by Daniel Neves-Pimenta, Daniel Wehner, and Robert Ilg. Presented will be this lecture by Daniel Neves-Pimenta and Daniel Wehner. It's about a holistic approach for dealing with the Ecodesign directive in lighting. The focus is on getting the complexity under control. Daniel Neves-Pimenta is Product and Business Development Manager and gained experience at Danish architects and was fascinated by the potential of LEDs and worked therefore for renowned companies like Nimbus and Xal. At the Fraunhofer Institute, he researches the future of the lighting industry and mass personalization. Daniel Wehner, also Business Development Manager, graduated from Nuremberg Technology and the University of Stuttgart, holding a doctorate in environmental engineering. He leads the development and data science, power product stewardship, and corporate sustainability solutions. Robert Ilg, Business Development Manager, studied mechanical engineering, holds also a doctor in environmental engineering, with about 20 years of experience. He leads activities on business operations such as acquisition, strategy, and sales for industrial clients. I think you can expect a very interesting talk.
Okay. I might be on. Thank you, Arno, for the introduction. Yes, the Fraunhofer Institute for Building Physics will have the possibility to give a holistic approach about these Ecodesign directive in lighting. Just a small overview about the departments that the Fraunhofer IBP is having. So from acoustics up to environment and hygiene, we are really a broad institution, and today there will be people from the life cycle engineering and the energy efficiency and indoor climate. There are also various groups. I'm from the group of lighting technology and passive solar systems, and my colleagues are from the sustainability in the age of digitalization. So when I was asked to have a contribution to these Ecodesign webinar, and we were a bit slow or critical in it, but Paul was like, we need to have some critical appointments on this stuff, and I thought, okay, that might be a good position for us. And on social media, I found this very interesting post that I'm showing here. So this shows a situation in London from 1915, and you can see some funny objects on the facade, which are there to bring daylight into the building. So this is a small note from a newspaper. No less than 50,000 reflectors of this firm's manufacturer have been fixed in London alone, and this was in 1851, so almost 170 years ago. People were really thinking of how to use daylight in buildings. Up till now, I think this is a very nice claim. Perfect daylight, why burn gas? So up till now, there are technologies that try to really bring daylighting into the buildings. We are also working on these issues and have mounted these special glasses you see on the right side with some integrated micro-optics to really bring daylight into the room and throw it up to the ceiling to have more usage of the daylight. So if we want to be critical on this, we can say, why waste energy at all if we can have sunlight? Of course, this is hard to integrate into this directive. Another aspect that Kei-san already mentioned is that this directive is really focusing very strong on aspects like energy efficacy, of course. But it's not only flicker that is necessary for people to not happen. It's also necessary to have a very good spectrum and a very, not only CRI, but maybe also the gamma and stuff that is also happening in the moment. But this directory is really focusing on the hard fact. Usually when it comes to fixtures, it's always a price issue. And if we take a look at the total cost of lamps and fixtures, there are many body parts, there are many complex parts, there's electronics and stuff. So I might say it's a small estimation, less than 5% maybe are really the costs that go into the LED. So it's a bit ridiculous to be always focusing on aspects like money and energy if we really have many more aspects to cover. Of course, the energy label is focusing on energy, and this is a right thing to do because this is some fixture from or some numbers from the repro light. We see that the consumption is really 99% of the use in the use phase of the fixtures. So the production phase also is using a bit of energy, but we see that if we run the fixtures, there is where the energy really goes in. So it's necessary to take a look at that. Also, we are happy that some of the older technologies are slowly being drifted out. This may be hard for some designer fixtures, but maybe there will be some retrofits to allow them to lighten. We already had a view on the energy label. We also think this is maybe bringing a bit of confusion to the customers. It's really hard already for the fixture manufacturers to know if they should put the label for their fixture or for the lighting engine and stuff. So, but maybe the next generation will understand it. Another aspect that is a bit weak in the point is Kai Haraguchi already said the perception of daylight on humans, or even the perception of artificial lighting, is growing strong. So visual and emotional and also biological aspects are not affected in the directive. And we know that it's not only physical, but also psychological aspects that lighting brings to us. And although there might be not the last proof, but I think everyone can assure that lighting is very important to all this stuff. So back to total costs of ownerships in buildings. This figure, maybe people might know it. So 10% of building costs are in the construction, and then 90% of the costs are really in the operating of the building. And this is right, and I think this is also the aspect where the energy directive tries to help. But there's one next stuff, because there are some users inside the building, and these users are, let's say, the main personal or the main cost aspect. And if we do not have a look at these stuff, you see these fixtures here, are these numbers, they show that almost 100% after 30 years of the building are personal costs and the salaries of the people. And if we do not look at these efficacy there, if people are not working well, they might lose much more energy and used to bring a really worse efficacy. And we also think that this directive is quite a complex thing to do, and all the lighting companies, fixture companies are striving to bring it to life. And this is where we are trying to bring some help in the next slides. And this is where we'll pass over to Daniel Wehner to give his view on a holistic eco-design approach, which is required.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, for your very interesting insight into life cycle costs of lighting. And on the next slide, we will see that as for the costs, also sustainability is about a whole lot more than just energy efficiency in use. In fact, really a lot more, so much that at the first glance, it might seem overwhelmingly complex, especially if you look at all these indicators that are around and have to commonly comply with. There are many indicators, not only regarding different effects you have on the environment, like global warming, water depletion, or biodiversity loss. Also, each of these indicators are different computational models behind it and methods you would have to follow. And if you're a bit familiar with this topic, you will also know there are different scopes that are sometimes required from you to deliver, like maybe you know cradle to gate or cradle to grave or scope 1, 2, 3. If you know these terms, then you also know very often it is not only about what happens in your company, but also what happens outside in your supply chain or downstream at the users of your products, or even at the end of life. And sure, it's understandable if you say, already this Ecodesign directive is so difficult to get your head around at the moment. You don't really see a way to go beyond this scope right now. But we think you should really ask yourself whether you want to continue to maybe muddle through and be overwhelmed by the next environmental regulation you are most likely going to face in the future. Many of these regulations are already around. Maybe you don't have to comply with now, but it is very likely you will have to comply with more life cycle related regulations in the future. Or do you really want to take this as a starting point and follow a more holistic approach to product stewardship and corporate sustainability, and tap on also on the value of sustainability, become a leader in the field, and make a profit out of it? And the good news on the next slide is that it's actually easier than you may think to get started with a holistic eco-design approach, as you can benefit from the experience and lessons learned from many thousand companies all around the world in the last decades, where we can clearly see that basically it is about 3 key capacities you need to build up in order to have a solid, robust eco-design approach. First, of course, we also heard about this a lot today. You need to understand your stakeholders, which are most of all the users of your light. It needs to suit them, but your stakeholders, for sure, also the legislators, your investors, and some more you need to take into account. So this is, I think, very basic for any great product. If it comes to capacity to comply with today's and future regulations, then life cycle assessment capacity will be very important pillar of your portfolio in terms of competence to run such analysis, as well as the data you need for it. This is important for you in two ways. On the one hand side, with having the data and the methods at hand, you will be ready to compute all the kind of different environmental indicators that you will probably have to comply with in the future. And on the other hand side, with understanding the environmental hotspots around the life cycle of your products, will give you a very good understanding where the problems are and where probably new technical regulations will be enforced in the future, because legislators usually also back up their decisions with such kind of life cycle analysis. And the more requests you get in the future from investors, from legislators, or even from your customers, the more important it will be to set up flexible data engineering and analysis infrastructure. On the next slide, I would like to recommend you a white paper if you want to know more about how to get started with product stewardship. And in this white paper, we collected a couple of typical mistakes companies make when getting started in this topic and how to do better. However, if you don't want to do this all by yourself and might look for some help, for example, from Fraunhofer, and on the next slide, you see, yeah, that was right. Thanks, Daniel. You can see how a typical approach looks like. You can just open the whole slide to the 3 pillars, Daniel. Thank you. We don't need to go too much into detail of this kind of project collaboration. I only want to point out a few things. It's very common for us that we have to work with a very large product portfolio, sometimes with more than 100,000 different individual products. And we're also used to that the database, the in-house data you have about your products are incomplete with regard to life cycle assessment. This is not so much a problem for us. In order to keep things lean, actually you and also we want to work with what is at hand and try not to go into extra data collection. Because if you do it now, in the future, you will have to do it again, and that will cause a lot of effort you would want to avoid. On the other hand side, with the experience we have from hundreds of different projects in different industries, we usually can figure out quite well which of your data gaps are actually important. And if we find an important data gap, then we usually also have experience and data behind to at least narrow down the uncertainty and still get to robust results. As a result, you can get, of course, insights about your product portfolio. But if you want to go further, we also provide automated workflows, components for automated workflows, or simple to use dashboard tools tailored to specific tasks and roles in your company. However, if you don't want to do all this at once, there's no problem. On the next slide, you see we offer a wide range of different collaboration formats, from very quick projects, we call them quick checks, over to portfolio analysis, or then going a bit deeper into tool prototyping or workflow automation, or even do the know-how transfer or going into a strategic partnership. On the next slide, last but not least, I want to welcome you to get in touch with us and benefit from our interdisciplinary expertise for holistic eco-design in lighting. I think you could see a major benefit is that we do not only have experts in sustainability and data engineering, but also have technical experts in lighting in our institute. So this would guarantee a very smooth and effective cooperation, regardless if it is a technical optimization project you would be looking for example, finding integrated solutions for artificial and daylight use, or whether it's more about taking a customer focus and optimizing the user experience through lighting in a shop, for example, or whether it is to build up product stewardship capacity in your company. And with this, I would like to say thank you to all of you for joining our presentation. I'd be very happy to hearing from you and maybe getting in touch after this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel and Robert. I appreciate you for reminding us that while very important, the new Ecodesign directive is just one piece from the complex puzzle of LCA and product stewardship that challenges manufacturers, and especially thank you for giving the perspective how to turn such challenges into a benefit. Now we will come to our last lecture, and this will complete the picture on the new Ecodesign directive. Mario Plenek, product developer at Nimbus, joined the company in 2019. Before, he worked as technical advisor for controls and functional requirements for artificial lighting and daylighting, with a focus on IoT and human-centric lighting at Cardiff Engineers. He gained his master degree at the Lighting Institute of the Karlsruhe Institute for Technologies, where he also worked as a scientist. Mario Plenek's presentation, Exploring Ecodesign, Single Light Regulation, Implementations as Manufacturer, addresses the challenges for manufacturers from technical documentation to communication with clients. Mario, please, I will hand over.
Thank you, Arno, for the short introduction. As we already heard from Paul and Volker, as a manufacturer, I will tell you something about the parts of a manufacturer for luminaires. So I'm working at the Nimbus Group. The Nimbus Group was founded in 1988 in Stuttgart. And there we are still producing and manufacturing our luminaires. We are part of the Häfele Group since 2019, and we are suppliers for projects. For luminaires, like everything else. So for carpenters with our Lux product ranges, so for LED strips for building, and also as Robin Ogden already told, we have a lot of customers who are building like surrounding products, and so they also need kind of support from us. As I said, I will tell you something about exploring Ecodesign, like single lighting regulation and the implementation as a manufacturer. And so the regulation EU 2019-2020 is more about the not anymore about the luminaire, but more on the light source. So the regulation tries to equalize the E27 retrofit, for example, with the PCB LED, which is in the luminaire. So this makes it a little bit complicated to understand, and also there are a lot of challenges which are coming to us right now. So, for example, there's a big problem and a big challenge in understanding, and also the support from the European Union, because in some parts and a lot of parts, the regulation is quite open and leaves a lot of space for interpretation. So even the support from the market surveillance and also from the European officers is not as fluent as we wish. So we wait until the 1st of May, where we are starting, or we are also integrating our information into the April database. And even that is not really, we don't know if the 1st of May is really the deadline where we can start to fill in. Another big challenge are the expectations from the dealers and our customers. So also, as Volker and Paul explained, when a customer comes to us and asks us, hey, okay, we have a luminaire which is rated as A, and now there's no label anymore because we do not put a label on it, or we do not need to put a label on it because we are selling the contained product. And even if he asks or look into the data sheet and sees, okay, my luminaire is now containing a light source which is maybe labeled as B or C, we need to clarify that our luminaire is still as good as it was before, but only the regulation changed. So also for the Lux product range, for the LED stripes, which we mainly sell to carpenters or other different companies who are building like furniture or surrounding products, they are also asking us, okay, so how does it work, and where do we need to put our label, or do we need to put a label, or how do we need to specify? But this is more connected to the EU 2019-2015 with also the European product database. So now for us, the implementation and realization splits up into two parts. So we have our serial products, which we might revise, and also we have the new products. So for the old products, we still apply. It's not that easy because sometimes we have a luminaire which is, or a light source which is glued somewhere, or which is connected with rivets to another part. And when you look in the regulation, you can specify only the smallest part of a luminaire which is made, like can be extracted without damaging, and then there's a big question, okay, what does damaging mean, or how do you can extract it with the common tools? So for example, you can also go to the shop and buy something for riveting bags the luminaire to the house. So it's very, very complicated, especially for our serial parts. What part of the luminaire we can, or we are looking at, and we need to focus it for checking, or if we can, or if the regulation applies. Another thing is the supply chain. So we, as a manufacturer, we want to sell luminaires which are as much efficient as possible. So it's not that easy to get like LEDs which are gets our demand, so that we can say, okay, our luminaire or our light source is energy efficiency class A. So there are LEDs which are as good as energy efficiency class A under certain circumstances, but if we put them onto a PCB board, maybe then it's getting warm, we have the problem with the heat management, and then our light source is not anymore energy efficiency class A, but B, or a little bit worse. So it's not that easy to get a supply for like LEDs as we had before, to make luminaires which are very, very efficient. So the procurement of raw materials is not that easy, especially for maybe older products. So we need, all in all, have a lot of redesign in our existing products to fulfill the requirements, or at least register them at a light source. And easier it's a little bit for new products, because there we have the opportunity to develop a little bit more for the single lighting regulation. So for example, okay, are we going to screw something, or are we going to put a rivet somewhere, or are we going to glue something, or what are the possibilities to design our luminaire as easy as possible, and also makes construction so that you can extract the light source from the luminaire with common tools. Another part is, which is quite tricky for us right now, is the technical documentation, because we need to clarify for the European Union and also the market surveillance which part of our luminaire is the light source. So we need, for each luminaire we are selling, we need to make kind of an explosion drawing and also an explanation how to extract, so like a manual, the light source from our luminaire. So this is a massive requirement of time to generate all these information. So we have manufacturing instructions, but these are only for internal use. And I'm in right now a lot of contact with the market surveillance, because they still also do not know if a manufacturing instruction is okay for a manual for replacing an extraction of the light source, because there it definitely shows how you need to put together the light source and also how to extract it again. Also, it is for us as a manufacturer quite tricky, because there's a lot of internal information we need to put on a database. In the end, the manual for the replacement and extraction of the light source is in the private part, so only the market surveillance can see it. But even so, it is still in the internet, it is still somewhere. And like, you know, there are a lot of parts in the online business, and you do not know if somehow these information can leak out of the database. So there are a lot of concerns about it. The next thing is the market surveillance. So what does the market surveillance do? So in the end, it's kind of it's not a kind of competitor or something we are afraid of, but more it's like kind of a okay, so how do we need to handle them? Can we see them more as a friend or more as a kind of a police? But all in all, the market surveillance is able to get luminaires from a retailer for testing, and the regulation says that the market surveillance must test 10 luminaires. So if you are if you are a manufacturer which sells like luminaires which are quite expensive, you are very fast in a couple of €1,000. And I had a webinar with the market surveillance a couple of days ago, and the market surveillance is able to get the luminaires from a retailer without paying for it. So they just take them, make the measurements, deassemble, reassemble, and give them back to the retailer. So all in all, the luminaires shouldn't break or shouldn't get being destroyed, because we made the instruction how to extract the light source from the luminaire, so nothing should be destroyed. But even then, if they give them back to the retailer, they are not anymore originally packed. So what happens if maybe after 2-3 years our retailer says, hey, sorry, we cannot sell them anymore because the customer do not want it because they are not anymore originally packed? So who is going to pay for it? Or maybe the market surveillance is not able to reassemble them correctly, and so we have the problem. Okay, so what now? So who's going to pay for it, and who's in charge for all the process? The next thing is who's going to sue and who's going to check everything. Right now, the market surveillance is the only instance who's going to check it. If the luminaire is fulfilling the regulations, but is it only possible that some different instance is able to going to say, okay, maybe you check on this company, maybe they are doing something wrong, or so the part of competition is maybe going to change a little bit. So, and also what are the legal consequences of it? So right now it's just a stop of selling, but maybe what happens if you are going to sell them still, or there are so many open questions right now, especially for all the right stuff and the legal stuff. And yeah, so this is also a very, very big challenge for us as a manufacturer. So how do we position us on the market, and how do we position us in the legals? So my conclusion, and also the way to go, is so right now we are rechecking the possibility how to redesign our still selling products, and also how to make a revision for it. But all in all, right now we are integrate the replaceability of light sources much stronger in our product development process than before. So we are thinking twice how we are going to make the construction to fit in the light source in the luminaire. Another thing is, or another part is the demand of the very highly efficient LEDs to fulfill our expectation, from the market, from our customers, and also for ourselves, to get at least a very high efficient luminaire, or at least light source, because exactly right now you can have a A-rated light source and put it into a black box with a small part of end opening, and in the end there's like it's still a very good light source which is rated A, but in the end there's no light coming out of the luminaire. So which is also part of communication to the dealers and customers, that our luminaires are still good, and yeah, also for our customers which are building like the surrounding products. So now the best part, or the biggest part to gain all the information is a lot with other manufacturers. So especially in the part of interpretation, you need to talk a lot with other manufacturers, with the market surveillance, then try to get someone from the European Union. So the whole process is very, very versatile, and we need to be happy, or we hope that the EU is going to also revise the regulations which are right now active and going to be active, to specify more and to more clarify a lot of things, so that it is a little bit easier for us as manufacturer to handle the regulation, and also to reduce the amount of time for going into the regulation stuff. For example, with the technical documentation, which is a massive amount of time we need to use for making the next the documentation for extraction. So I hope I could give you a short glimpse into the life as a manufacturer for luminaires, how the single lighting regulation affects us. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope we'll have a nice discussion, because I've seen there are a lot of questions already popped up, and I hope we all can answer them. So thank you very much, and back to Arno.
Thank you, Mario, and especially for sharing your critical thoughts, your conclusions on this complex and very, very critical topic. So that was for today the last lecture, and with that lecture we reached the end of the production value chain. and also almost the end of the webinar, but almost means we have some time left over. I think it's about 15 to 20 minutes that we can now use for discussing and answering questions. Is that correct, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. In that case, from the questions I've seen at first, one question that is going to Volker, I think. And the question is about how to find out if a light source is an exception of an SLR.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. This is actually quite an interesting question, and which had popped up a couple of times in the Q&A. And there are a lot of exceptions from the SLA. And to be honest, there are like 24 of those exceptions. And of course, those regulations are not self-contained, but they reference other regulatory texts. So you either become an expert in the SLA or you ask an expert. We are an expert, so feel free, send me an email. We will check whether or not your product will be exempt from the SLA.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Then we have another question. Some say LED boards and COBs are NDLS because they don't fulfill the criteria for a DLS. But here in this presentation, it was mentioned to be a DLS. So who could answer that? I think, Paul, you said that's something for you.
Yeah, I can answer it. I think this question is not to be answered very easily, specifically on a LED module, because an LED module can be a direct light source or it can be a non-direct light source. That depends on the directivity of the LED module. Typically, very many modules might be a direct light source, but others might also not. So you'll have to check the directivity and compare it to the requirements of the directivity to fit into the either directive or non-directive light sources.
Okay, thank you. And one question that also popped up several times, I think it's also you, Paul, to answer that. It's written in German. I think I'll also, or shall I translate it? It's a company that produces luminaires, unicates with 24-volt light strips as the source. He's asking if there are exceptions, as there are not so big numbers of the same luminaire that they are producing. They are doing more individually different luminaires and would need to measure each luminaire by itself, and they think it's a huge effort. How to handle that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I have noted for very many questions that I might be able to answer them, but I think, for example, for this question, there's also other experts in this round who are very good at answering it. So just feel free to jump in if you think it would be very good for you to answer. For this specific question, so there is an exemption. Volker already said there's a lot of exemptions, but there is also a specific exemption for luminaires which are produced in a number of 10 or less. So if you have a number of 10 or less of your luminaire, then you do not need to fulfill the requirements.
Okay. Any other comment to that? Okay, not. Yeah, and the next question is, as lighting designer, we specify and develop custom-made decorative lights together with light manufacturers. Does the new regulation mean that the luminaire manufacturer must register a custom-made integrated light source, e.g., for an example, a COB on a removable mounting plate with an optical cover, and there to have it measured? Or I think it's very similar to the question before, even if the number of luminaires sold is 1. So I think this is also the same exception below 10. And another question, okay. What about dimming? Are the specifications all taken for full brightness? I think it is defined that the manufacturer or defines under which condition the measurement takes place. Is that correct, Paul?
Actually, if you have a luminaire which can be dimmed, also color tuned, you will have to define the luminaire at the highest brightness possible. So you cannot go to the lowest brightness, which has the highest efficacy, and then just say this is a very efficient luminaire, but you'll actually have to choose the highest brightness. There's a little possibilities for exemption, so you can explain that you did not do this because you found some exemption, that it is useful to do it in another way, but actually you should define it at the highest brightness.
Okay. And now, yes, I found it. Okay. You already replied that by a private answer, but I think it's also interesting for the others, so I will read your answer on the question 2. Is there a registration fee on April database? And there is no fee for that, as it has to be done, I think. Another question. And how about the regulation if you are using a flexible module that has integrated glue, thermal glue on it, and you put it in a luminaire or in some structure? How do you handle that?
Would Mario Planek from Nimbus, you're selling a lot of Lux strips. Would you like to answer, or should I answer?
No, it's okay. I can answer. So in the end, you need to specify only the flexible module, because when you are going to sell the flexible module, you just sell the flexible module. So, for example, we are going to register only our LED strips, and if the carpenter, for example, is going to glue it into a shelf, he just needs to mention in his kind of data sheet for his shelf that he made he put into a light strip of us, and but we need to provide the label and the data sheet. So you need to specify it, but only if you are going to produce them. So, but if you are going to just buy them from a different company or manufacturer, they should specify it and also register it in the database.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. And another question is, if this regulation mainly or exclusively concerns B2C or also B2B business? Who will answer that? I think, Paul, you could also relatively easily answer that. Is that correct?
Sure. So in spite of the old regulations which had been active, there's no more narrowing down of B2B or B2C applications. The regulation is relevant for all products placed on the market. So as soon as you place it on the market or you put it into use, you'll need to fulfill the requirements, no matter if you are private user or professional user.
Okay, thank you. Another question is about UVC devices, if they are also affected by that regulation. But I think it's due to the reason that it's defined that a certain CRI level is, CRI above 0 is required, that UVC is not part of that. It's just for visible light. Correct?
Volker, do you have an answer for UVC?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. There are certain exemptions from UV for certain wavelengths, and some of these wavelengths, especially UVC, is covered from this.
Yeah, then I think we are through the question that we have to answer directly. There are some more questions that are very, very complicated to answer, and I think that could be best answered by email afterwards directly to address the people who asked. Or did you find another question right now? No.
I have from Mr. Zivanovic, there was a question about the how the luminaire is going to be treated and if the energy label can be used to hide a bad system. So it is very, very interesting, and it's also a big part of communication with our customers. But in the end, it is like, you can say yes, yeah, of course. You might have a light source which is rated as A, and as already said, you can put it in the black box and only can extract like a little part of the light. And in the end, if you specify the luminaire after the old energy efficiency class, it might be rated as G, but now it is still rated as A. So this is a very, very crucial question. I also already asked to some EU officers and also to the market surveillance and also to some other institutions, and they are very, very unhappy with this development, because the customer does not know how efficient his luminaire is. He only knows that his light source is energy efficient, but the luminaire can be very, very bad, and you do not, as a customer, you don't get any information about how good your luminaire is. And so you can definitely say that you can hide a bad system to the customer. And I also think that this is a very, very critical development, and I hope they will change the regulation so that you need to make a kind of label or more information or give more information about your whole luminaire. I think I hope I could answer this question.
Excellent, yes. So, okay. Feels somebody good to answer this question? Is the energy labeling requirement effective for light sources sold only for aluminum manufacturers direct from the manufacturer? So LED systems with controller without any market in between or not? That's the last question here. Okay.
So from my side, I don't completely understand the question. So I would, from my side, I would prefer to look more closely into the meaning and maybe answer it afterwards by email.
I think that would be fine. Okay, we have another new question.
So
yeah,
I think
there are mostly questions that should be answered by email afterwards, right?
Yeah, they are getting a little complicated now.
Yes,
the questions.
now.
So and we're at the end of the time. Also, it's already almost 12 o'clock. And Arno, I thank you very much for your moderation and your insights. It has been a great pleasure to get your moderation, and also thank you for your flexibility, because behind the scenes there was a lot of changes just during the webinar, actually, which not all of them worked perfectly, but in the end, I think the viewers did not notice too many of the problems we had in the behind the scenes. So thank you very much. Thank you very much also from my side to all presenters. I think we had a very wide overview of all applications, of all also from the LED to the module to the luminaire. And also thank you to Fraunhofer Institute, who gave a great insight looking further over the eco-design regulation into that it might sometimes also be useful to just use sunlight as the most energy efficient light source of lighting.
Thank you, Paul. Thank the whole team from Lumitronics and all the speakers for these very, very interesting presentations. And therefore it's live. So in a live event, always such things have to be managed. In that case, thanks again to all. It was my pleasure, and I hope that we can welcome all our listeners, all attendees again to another very interesting event like that. Bye from my side. All the best. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.